Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to spend some time talking about the final requirements for our project in ID1. So you'll see that Project 2 Part 4 involves really kind of 5 key parts. So we're going to have the final floor plan, okay? Then we'll have a final furniture plan, a rendered floor plan. We're going to focus on the kitchen design in this portion. If we come all the way down here, you'll see we'll be discussing elevations and a perspective of the kitchen. And then you'll be finalizing your brand identity and logo. And then, of course, you're going to be compiling everything that you've done for this entire project into a final booklet. Okay, so just going back up to the top. Okay, so the first thing I want to make sure is clear is the distinction between the final floor plan, the final furniture plan, and then the rendered floor plan. So you'll see with the final floor plan, that's also referred to as a partition plan. So what that's going to be focusing on is the architecture of the space. So where the walls are, where the built-in features are, kitchen cabinets, things like that, bathroom features, plumbing fixtures, toilets, showers, all of the things that are really integral to the house, just inherently there that, if you were to pick up and move, you wouldn't take with you, right? You're not going to take the kitchen sink. So we'll be focusing on walls, doors, windows, closets, built-in interior features. This will have the fully designed kitchen layout, including cabinets, appliances, plumbing fixtures, and so on. We will have fully designed bathroom layouts with toilets, sinks, bathtubs, grab bars if necessary, things like that, right? We'll be labeling the rooms, and we'll be including all of those necessary dimensions, including room dimensions, ADA clearances, things like that. So this might include wheelchair clearance, the 30 by 48 clear space. This may include the 60-inch turning radius, all of that we've been discussing. Okay, so that's going to be the final floor plan. Then the second requirement that's new to this portion is going to be the final furniture plan. Okay, so you'll make a copy, have it off to the side. And so for the final furniture plan, of course, we're focusing on the furniture, right? So we're going to have all of the furnishings alongside, of course, the walls, windows, plumbing fixtures, right? So we're just adding that in, okay? But what you won't do is just clutter up the furniture plan with a bunch of dimensions. So we're going to have very minimal dimensions on the furniture plan, only where you would, have like a tight point that you need to make sure, you can get through, something like that. And then the rendered floor plan. So you'll have another copy of your floor plan, and this time you'll take off all dimensions, room labels, ADA clearances, anything like that, because what you'll do is then render that either by hand, in Photoshop, however you'd like to do it. So that's really the presentation plan. So if we take a look at CAD, okay, I have a couple mock-ups here. So obviously they're not fully developed, but it'll give you an idea of what these mean visually. So if we're looking at the final floor plan, the partition plan, that's going to be pretty open, okay? So you're going to be showing the entire building, okay? So the entire building, the porches, the stairs, the ramps, all of it, okay? And you'll want to include the dimensions of the windows that are going around the perimeter, and all of the basic dimensions of each space, whatever makes sense in your design to show the width, length of rooms, things like that. This doesn't have to be, crazy detailed. You don't need to give us measurements for every little thing, but some of the big general measurements of room, dimensions, openings, things like that. Then you'll also be fully developing your kitchen and your bathrooms. We want to make sure we get the important dimensions there as well. So if we take a look at a couple of bathrooms, some things I wanted to point out to make sure you include. So you'll be including the 5-foot turning radius, our 60-inch circle, right? That shows, in the ADA compliant bathrooms that's possible. Or the 30 by 48 clear space, kind of T-shaped clear space, if you're using that one instead. You're going to give us the general lengths and widths of the space, and then, making sure to show corridors, if there's toilet enclosures, that type of information. So you can be thoughtful about how you put these dimensions in, so it's giving us a lot of information, but we don't clutter it up with just so many dimensions we can't read it. So for example, if I dimension this particular wall here that's telling me that's 3'6", these walls are all in line, right? All the way down to the shower. So it's 3'6" here, 3'6" here, as well as in the shower. So I don't have to add that information. And if I put a 3-foot measurement here for this toilet alcove, then I know that this toilet is 18 inches on center. So you could do one or the other. You don't have to have redundant information. Okay, and it might be the case that as I get here, I think, oh, all right, I need to put in another dimension, so I'll just come in and do that, and just make sure that all of the important ones are covered. You have to be careful about not having overlapping dimensions. We should be able to read everything, that it's not running into other line work or things that make it difficult. You also want to be thinking about including the grab bars in the ADA bathrooms as appropriate. So the grab bars can be very simple. These are just using a polyline with a fillet on the corners to sort of round those off, showing the grab bars behind the toilet, alongside, both horizontal and vertical, and you can absolutely go in here and dimension these as well. Some of these will be obvious. I mean, based on the size of a toilet, I know that that's a 24-inch center grab bar behind. So just make sure to be following your guidelines in your textbooks and from the lectures, and again, dimension as appropriate. So for example, if I wanted to dimension this grab bar and I was like a little bit tight on space, I might actually either take this dimension and move it or relocate it. Just depends on your design and what you need to do. And I could actually come in from this back side, and do it that way. So you just want to make sure that things aren't overlapping and getting in the way. So just be neat and clean and thoughtful about your dimensions. Okay. So that will be the final floor plan. So again, everything that's built in with the building, walls, toilet fixtures, windows, doors, and all of the needed dimensions to make sure your design is clear, including corridors and things like that, right? So we make sure that we meet code. Then the second is the furniture plan. So again, for the furniture plan, and with all of them, you want to keep the entire building intact, okay, showing the porches, stairs, all of that information is really important, okay? But then, we don't need to, dimension everything out on top of our furniture. So you'll show the floating furniture pieces only. Obviously, yours will look a little bit better than mine, okay? And then, as you lay out your design, if certain areas look like they might be a little bit tight, like right here, I would question, what is the path through here? What is that width? Put a dimension there. So have some minimal dimensions for the furniture, how it relates to, paths walking around, things like that. In a room like this, I certainly wouldn't need to go in. I mean, obviously you'd want a little more furniture in here, right? But I certainly wouldn't have to go in and say, oh, there's 8 feet of clearance on the side. It's pretty obvious there's plenty of room. It's just where it becomes questionable and a little bit tight, right? Like, I don't need that one right there. That was left over. Okay. Then you will be doing a rendered floor plan, presentation to show all the materials and the character of the space. So for that, being a presentation document, you don't want any extra clutter or words or anything like that. So you'll make a copy of that and then get rid of all dimensions, all room labels, all of that, and just let it be the drawing itself, including all of the furniture, and then you'll do a color rendered version of that. Okay, and we'll see an example in a past student example in just a minute. Okay, so really think about having 3 different copies of your floor plan to make it easy on yourself. You can absolutely also be putting your different items on different layers, if you remember that from let's see, VCT, right? If you'd like to work that way, putting dimensions on a layer, plumbing on a layer that you then turn on and off, and you can see how, you could do it that way as well if you prefer it, okay? Then while we're actually still in CAD, something I want to make sure to point out is how you get the dashed lines. Now, so the AutoCAD file that you guys all downloaded from Canvas is really set up for you. So the dimensions should work. Unless you want to alter them, you can. It's set up with a page layout that's all set up to scale and everything. So you're pretty good to go there. And you'll notice that the ADA measurements, like the turning radius, for example, is in a dashed line. That's how we want to show things like that. You also want to show, things that are hidden, like upper kitchen cabinets, things like that, because that's above our cutting plane, in a hidden dashed line. Okay, well, sometimes you'll think you'll have it all set up, but then it wants to print solid. And even if I went to like a different floor plan, here's my partition plan, I can see that I'm getting those circles, and they're showing up dashed. Well, what if they're showing up solid? What do you do? Okay, what you want to do is type in LT scale. LT scale for line type scale. And what I have it set at is 0.5, and that should work. The way the scale of the drawing being at 1/8 of an inch, the way that hidden line type is all set up, that should give you a nice dashed line that you can actually see. But if that isn't working, if you type in LT scale, you can kind of flip-flop around and change it a little bit and come back to it. So if I type in LT scale and change it to 1, for example, do you see how all the dashed lines got bigger? So it's, kind of like longer dashes, basically. Okay. If I do LT scale 2, enter, they get even longer yet, right? So you can kind of toggle back and forth, 0.5, and get that to work. So sometimes you just have to do it a few times to get it to show up properly. So when you PDF this page, then you'll have nice pochette walls, dimensions we can read, nice visible hidden and dashed lines for your wheelchair circle, your turning radius there, and you could also use a different one on your hidden lines for your upper cabinets as well. There's a lot of options, as I'm sure you all know. Okay, so then going back to Canvas, that's really covering what you need to be thinking about in CAD for your floor plan, furniture plan, rendered floor plan, okay? And then, as you're getting into developing your kitchen design, we see again that we have some selection requirements and then some suggestions. So just a reminder on that you really thought about for part 3 already, but make sure that you're picking your cabinets from wood mode, the link there. And if you want to change the colors or anything, as you can pick, a different paint or finish, and it would be a custom finish, which would be fine. The appliances will all be from Sub-Zero, Wolf, Cove. That's the refrigeration, the cooking, ventilation, dishwashers, all of that for your kitchen. Then in terms of, plumbing fixtures, hardware, tile, countertops, all of the other things, it's really up to you. I have some suggestions here of high-end, very nice places to look for these things that I recommend you check out, but if you found other things you want to use, that's completely fine. And you may have found some things, for example, from the WGSN articles that you think are great and want to include, and that would be fantastic. Please do. Then getting down to the specifics on the kitchen. So of course you'll be laying out your kitchen in a plan view, in the floor plan, locating the refrigeration, the cooking, the sinks, and all of that. Well, that only tells a client so much, right? So this is where you're going to get into doing some elevations of your kitchen designs, right? So, thinking to the lectures, thinking about, the standard cabinetry, how those drawings are laid out, the sizes and all that, you're going to be applying that here to elevations and then a perspective. So you're required to do elevation, flat 2D technical drawings for all kitchen walls that have cabinetry. Okay, and then at least 2 sides of a kitchen island if you have one. So the number of drawings you need to do is going to vary completely based on your design. Okay, so you're going to be including widths and heights of cabinets, vertical and horizontal dimensions. Again, we'll be looking at cabinet sizes that are standard in those 3-inch increments. We'll be looking at including door styles and what do those cabinets look like? What's the hardware look like? We'll be showing the hinge, which I'll show you an example in a second. Again, these are black and white technical drawings, and they should be labeled to coordinate with the tags on your final floor plan. So on your final floor plan, you should just include a basic elevation marker that shows, the direction we're looking and says, elevation 1, 2, 3, or ABC, right? Just like VCT from a while back. And then you're also going to be doing a 3D perspective drawing and rendering. So this can be done by hand. If you like to draw perspectives, you could absolutely draw this by hand. Or you can actually do a simple build of the kitchen only in SketchUp, or do a combination of the two, however you like to work. And you could do getting the basics in SketchUp, then drawing on top of it, or however you like to do your renderings. The perspective is really to tell us about your design, to make sure it's super clear, show all the materials, your design intent and everything. So you will either render this 3D view by hand or using Photoshop, okay? So your rendered floor plan and your rendered 3D view should make sense together. They should have the same quality and character. So if you do one in Photoshop, you should probably do both in Photoshop, right? So it should be a nice cohesive presentation that everything makes sense together. Okay, and then of course you'll have your final logo, your brand identity, and you'll be incorporating that into your final presentation. Okay. So you see we have a list here of all of the final requirements. So you'll be combining and including everything that you've done for this project. You'll have a beautiful cover page. You're going to create a table of contents that lists out what we're going to find in what order. You'll give a project brief, just briefly describing the project. You don't have to write a novel. And a brief, simple concept statement about your design and how you solved what the client needs. You'll include all of your research posters, your logo design, your design process drawings, so bubble, block, loose floor plan, just one set. You don't need to include them all, just the ones that most closely relate. Your final floor plan, furniture plan, rendered floor plan, kitchen drawings, and then all of your furniture, finishes, decorative light fixtures, everything you've been working on, you'll include. As well as, the schedules, however you have chosen to integrate that. And of course, just a special note, don't forget to include your artwork and what room it's in. So make sure it's on that page and that you call it out. Okay. You're of course encouraged to include other things. I mean, by all means, this is the minimum, so you can include as much as you want. If you want to include additional drawings, if you want to create multiple 3D views, that's completely up to you. These are just the minimum requirements. And then the rubric down below. Okay. So if we take a look at an example quickly, just to illustrate a few of these things, okay, so here's a past example. And with past examples, always remember that the requirements change, right? Each of the requirements change, so don't, verbatim copy this because there's things that are different this semester. So you just use this as kind of a bit of a guide so you can kind of see how things have been done before. It's a bit of a visual aid, but, definitely always refer to the project requirements, okay? So table of contents, describing what we're going to be finding, where to find it, very specific. You wouldn't necessarily have to be this specific, but it's obviously fantastic, certainly not complaining. Okay, the project brief, concept statement again. Then the research posters are included here. Let's kind of go past those, right? And then we have our process drawings, again, one set. So we've kind of seen these before now, okay? And then we get into the floor plans. So how you choose to put these in is kind of up to you. If you'd like to keep them vertical and you can read everything, that's fine. But if you'd like to rotate it, you can rotate the plans. Okay, if you choose to do that, because it does fill up the page nicely, it's much easier to see and read, most certainly. I recommend doing that. Make sure that you rotate all of the text. So you don't want people to be turning their head trying to read the room labels, for example. So make sure that those are all rotated, and you can simply rotate one and then use match properties in AutoCAD, MA, and that will do it for you. So you don't have to rotate the dimensions, but just like the room labels and that type of thing. Also, please make sure to crop off the title block that goes around the edge and just let it be the floor plan. Okay, just let it be the building itself. We don't want that title block. It kind of adds extra clutter that we don't need to see. Okay. And then, so the requirements were different last year. So you see, that was just one floor plan. You guys are doing two. You're just separating them out. Then you'll have your rendered floor plan. So make sure they're all rotated the same way, sized the same, cropping off that title block again. We don't need to see that, right? But then we'll, be seeing your beautiful design and the renderings and all the color and textures and shadow and light, all those things you're doing in Visual Communication 1. So you can do this by hand and scan it in and clean it up, or you can do it in Photoshop. However you want to render it is completely up to you. You can render the interior only, like this individual did. You can also, if you'd like to, you can, add color and textures and things to, the porches, stairs, trees, and plants outside and things as well. That's up to you. Whichever you prefer is fine with me. Okay, so with your rendered floor plans, make sure you're showing all of the flooring changes, loose rugs, all of the patterns and textures and colors and everything you have going on in your design. It's really, really important in our understanding of what your space looks and feels like and how all of these things relate. Okay, it's really important. Make sure that they stay light and expressive. Remember, leave white, right? Show light coming in the windows. Make sure there's shadows underneath the furniture. This is one of the only true visualizations you're doing, this in the kitchen rendering, that actually show the client all of your hard work and all of your design. So make sure that you're showing it off well. Again, by hand or in Photoshop, however you prefer to work is up to you. Okay, then with the kitchen design, right? So you're obviously showing the kitchen design again in a plan view, but then also you're going to be doing elevations and 3D views. So for your elevations, okay, these should be very detailed. So this is a very good example. So we're seeing one of the main kitchen walls, okay? We're seeing the design of the cabinetry, right? So we're seeing, that there's a frame going around, sort of a recessed panel, simple hardware, open shelving, a panel above, the ventilation, so on and so forth, right? We're seeing the tile pattern, all of that. That's all very, very important. The more detail, the better. Okay, so as you're kind of thinking about creating these views, also think about if you are cutting an elevation through and you have like maybe an L or U-shaped kitchen, that's what you're seeing over here. If you think about this type of drawing where we're actually cutting through the upper and lower cabinets again, thinking back to VCT. And so how does that look, right? We're slicing through. You can either hatch this in or doing a simple X like that works just fine, okay? As you're thinking about your designs, you also want to be including, of course, the toe kick, right? There'd actually be a toe kick across the dishwasher as well, right? We're thinking about including all of the relevant information about the 36-inch high countertop, the 18-inch backsplash under these upper cabinets, the height of the upper cabinets, the full 9-foot height of the room, right? And then showing the sizes of the cabinetry. And so it would have been ideal, actually, if not only did this person include maybe the bottom, but the top could have been nice. I believe they chose not to just so it didn't get cluttered, but we could have, we can infer if this is, a 2'6" cabinet, what size these are and so on. But, it's just something to keep in mind. You want to make sure that you're including all the appropriate dimensions with still being neat and clean. Right? And we want to make sure the size of the dimensions is appropriate. These are sized very, very nicely. This looks good. So you don't want these numbers to be tiny. and you don't want them to be huge, right? And we also want to make sure the precision isn't something ridiculous. You wouldn't want this to say 2'6" and 30 seconds or something like that. So keep the precision, to a ½ inch is fine. Okay, so this is including all of the cabinetry, all of the, cooking, ventilation, everything that's in that design. Okay, so this is a really strong example. And then also don't forget that you want to be including the door swing, so how the doors open. So remember the point of these dashed lines go to the hinge side. They're pointing at the hinge side, so they would open here in the center, for example, which makes sense. So that just describes the design to us a little bit. Okay, so the other wall. Okay, so you can see, that must be where it turned the corner. Okay, we have this like section cut through, showing the overhang of the countertop, the depth of the toe kick, and so on. A refrigeration here. Looks like we're missing maybe a dimension or two, which would have been nice over there, but also again, a good example. If you have a kitchen island or anything like that, you want to make sure to detail that out as well and show at least 2 sides. And by the 2 sides, it will be the 2 most kind of intricate or important. So, if you have like a sink or cooking or anything, we're going to want to show that side. So in this case, there's drawers, cabinetry, the sink, and detail this out. Okay. If we're looking at this image, and then this image as well, I just want to point out these could have actually been shrunk down and put on the same page. These are really, really large drawings, to be on this page. So you can shrink them down, put them on the same page, and it's informative. It just kind of helps us relate them instead of having, to flip from page to page. Okay? All right. And then finally, concerning the kitchen, you're looking at the renderings. So this was done in SketchUp. So you can, download cabinets if you want to, or, simply build your cabinets. And you can get as detailed in SketchUp as you'd like. If you want to get really detailed and get everything in there, that's great. If you like to do some of it and then trace over it, do it in Photoshop or, whatever your technique is completely up to you. But with this image, or images if you choose to do multiples, it's really important that you're showing the client your design, what it's going to feel like to be in that space, how the volume of the space feels, how your materials are relating to each other, all of that. So, this image, I think they did a nice job. What it could benefit from, is showing a bit more of that ceiling plane, right? It just sort of disappears. What's going on in the ceiling? Do you have pendant lights hanging down? Include those. Do you have, a seating area, which I can clearly see here? Including some bar stools would have been very helpful, right? It helps us understand the design. Including maybe some items, I don't know, a bowl of fruit or something on the counter. Those little things, those little extra, accessories and things like that can go a long way in helping us, understand the design, right? But that kind of gives you a sense of, kind of what I'm looking for in terms of your 3D view of your kitchen. Again, you need to do at least one, but if you make a SketchUp model, you could give multiple views, and you could have one main one that you rendered. You could show a few black and white, however you'd like to describe your design. And then, this person goes on to do the rest of their layouts. Okay. All right, so that is, really the basic overview of the final requirements for this project and pulling all of your hard work together and describing your intricate, beautiful designs to your client.